What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk Faith by Brandon Asbury. Today we will be talking about overcoming temptation and resisting the devil, and more importantly, drawing near to God. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It would help out with my YouTube algorithm so they don't shut my channel down, and also would help boost this channel up. Now, today we will be talking and reading in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 6 through 10, and let's begin. Verse 6, it says, "But he gives more grace, therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy be gloom." 10. It says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you." Now, a little bit of backstory about this. The Apostle James is one of the 12 apostles, the brother of John, and the son of Zebedee. He wrote this letter near the middle or the end of the 40s AD. The nature and purpose of this beautiful letter, James addresses different topics, this style, and along with explicitly mentioning wisdom. The book of James is intensely practical. It is no incident that it includes the famous passage about doing what the word says, and the controversial one about showing faith by our deeds. These deeds are various, responding well to trials, how we respond to bad situations or the bad times, avoiding favoritism, cultivating a wisdom that will bring peace in place of division, using our material resources to honor God. Central to the letter is James' call to a deep, sincere, and consistent faithfulness to God. James starts off by saying in verse 6, he gives more grace, providing the believer ever makes the cross the object of his faith, by which grace comes by God. Verse 7, let's look at the ESV. It says, draw near. And the NIV says, come near. And then in verse 7, submit yourself means to humble yourself to God, to the plan he has provided, which is the cross. And also see verse 9, be afflicted, mourn, weep. The NSV says to be wretched, and the NIV says to grieve, reverse to having looked at things other than Christ in the cross. I want to read a couple of references and we will circle back to this passage. Turn in your books to the book of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 12. And it says, whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Means if you boost yourself up, worship yourself, be prideful, God's going to kick them pedestals out and he's going to humble you. That's happened to me plenty of times. And as well as in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 4, and it says, the reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor in life. And lastly, let's turn to the book of Luke, chapter 14, verse 11. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted, to be lifted up, to bring up. What is the repeating and key theme throughout this whole lesson so far? That is resisting the devil, humbling yourself, walk in humility, fear of the Lord. Do not exalt yourself. Do not be prideful. Do not be boasting. And first and foremost, put God first and foremost at the center of your life, and he will reward you with his grace. Verse 7 through 10, James makes the case that we have to reject pride and embrace humility. To resist the devil, pride and godliness cannot coexist hand in hand with one another, nor can godly humility and sin. God cannot be in the presence of sin. If we just set aside our pride, self-righteousness, and self-justification, then and only then can we mature. Our foundation should be our humility. I want to share with you what happened to me today. As you may know from the last episode, I talked about how I'm an ex-addict and how God brought me out of that. And by God's grace, by grace alone, I am saved. Not do anything of my doing. So I wanted to go back and see what could have easily been my future to mentally prepare myself for this and spiritually let God talk to me. As I stopped to grab some coffee, I noticed a young man, no older than myself, looked like he was pretty messed up on drugs. Like he was twitching, nodding out. And it's just like I was going to walk up to him. And at that time, me and my friend noticed he kept reaching his hand in his pocket. And us being from that background, we don't know what you have, We didn't want to take that chance. And so we got back in the car and we closed our eyes and we prayed for him. Simply that he finds the Lord and he humbles himself and the Lord brings him out of that darkness. Our next stop, we went all the way downtown to Jackson and Market Street. The heart of the homelessness and the drug population downtown. And we got out, we parked our car, we got out, we walked, watched them, we talked about how easily that could have been us. Easily. My friend, he, if not was worse than me, he was facing almost up to 50, 60 years in prison. You know what I'm saying? If not more than that. It got to the point where we was teenagers. And the cops was looking for a reason to put us down because they didn't want to deal with us no more because they was tired of dealing with us. And just the fact that we can sit back and laugh at that where we used to be and then now where we are now because we humbled ourselves and God exalted us. He lifted us up. He brought us out of there. Simply. And all you seen was tents under the underpasses, carts for shelves, tables, beds. Or people on the side of buildings with a soaked mattress, not knowing where they're going to get their food from. And it just makes you truly feel grateful for everything God has given me. My daughter, my family, my church family at North Bullitt Christian Church, and my brothers and my sisters there. Thank you. I love you. And our last stop was truly my hardest. It was our good friend Michael. That he passed away December 27th. Of last year, 2 days after Christmas. 2 days after Christmas. I want to show people where not resisting the devil can lead you. Either can lead you to 3, homelessness with nothing. Not even your next food, not knowing what your next food's going to come from. Sitting in a prison. Or worst of all, sitting in a grave lifeless. Because that's it for you, man. I promise you that. I was but 1 foot in a grave. The night that I overdosed, I didn't see nothing but darkness. That was what was waiting for me. But guess what? God had a different plan for me. I humbled myself. I repented. And I confess Jesus is my Lord. And I've been walking in faith ever since then. And he has lifted me up slowly but surely. He's opening doors for me that I never would have thought of. Never. And As I stood there with my friend at our friend's grave, we're sitting, you can tell both of us just wanted silence, but it's just, we just kept talking to avoid that awkward silence. And you can tell that none of us was feeling it because we was looking at a friend's grave, you know. And the last thing that I ever said to my friend, check this, was a little less than a month before he died. He had asked about Jesus. And I simply said, man, if you want to know about Jesus, pick up the Bible and read. I said, but until then, I cannot be around you because I know what happens when we are together. I know what happens, and I repeat, I cannot go back to that lifestyle. I don't care how much money you pay me. It's not worth it. You're not worth it. I'm going to follow God, and I'm going to follow Jesus. Sorry. But I just told him as long as he is under the influence of drugs like that, I cannot be around. That was the last thing I ever said to that boy. Within a couple weeks, he passed away. You know why? Because he didn't resist the devil. He didn't humble himself. Do I think I'll ever see him again? Probably not. You don't know what happens in them last situations before somebody dies, you know? So it's not my place to say. I'm not, so I'm just going to say probably. Or probably not. And at that time, at that silence of me and my friend sitting at our friend's grave, I just said in my head, thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much. Because if you did not save me, I could have easily dug this grave right beside my friend, you know? And that's like, how do you wrap your mind around that? That one of these spots could have been for you if you simply do not humble yourself. Because he will humble you. I promise you that. I went from losing my home, my cats that I've had since I was 14 years old. They got killed. My stepfather died of cancer. I lost 2 friends, and I lost myself. He will humble you. And then he will lift you up as soon as you humble yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want any of y'all to go through what I've been through because I guarantee you won't walk it out. I am not supposed to be here, but I am for a reason, and that is to help people like you. Whew. If I didn't humble myself and become a servant, I might as well go dig that grave beside my friend, because that is all that's left for me. And I don't know if I may or may not see my friend again because of his own life choices. And what I want you to take from this